they're the next stop up here where that group is. You may have heard about them already. They were both born in Germany, came to America around 1850. Grandpa was in the German Army for a couple of years before he came. He was a sergeant in the 38th Wisconsin Infantry during the Civil War. My mother and dad were Alfred John and Harriet Gale. Alfred John was F.W. and Josie's second child. In 1893, we had a picture taken. My sister Alfreda, sister Hattie, myself Calvin, and my sister Eva. I had 4 sisters. I was the oldest child. We had Hattie, she was born in 1884. She married Frank Cortev. Alfreda was born in 1888. She married, but she only lived for 8 years. Sister Eva married Andrew Shire in 1891. She was born in 1891. Mildred was born in 1902, and she married Gustav Wolf. She did make this picture. She wasn't with us yet. Picture of our house here in Gillett. Got my mom, my sister Hattie, my dad, myself, and standing on my shoulders is my pet goat. Somebody just asked me what had happened if the goat had an accident while he was on my shoulders. We weren't real sure about that. So, 1900, we had another family picture taken. Sister Eva's in the picture, myself, Sister Hattie, my dad Alfred, my sister Mildred made this picture, and my mom Harriet. When I grew up, I got to be 6 foot 6 inches tall. They said it was the tallest man in Oconto County. Came in really handy. I played baseball for the Gillett baseball team for a good many years, played first base, and I was known for my big black bat. I got a lot of hits with my big black bat. In 1910, we won the Little League Championship in the area. See, the Little League meant something a little bit different back in 1910 than it does today with the little kids playing. When we won the championship, a team in Green Bay challenged us to a game. They ran a special train from Gillett to Green Bay for the game. We filled the train up, all went in, watched the game, and we whipped them. You can see a picture of actually you can see one of my old uniforms in the Gillett Museum. Lorraine is holding it. She's the curator of the museum. I want you to notice the size 14 shoes. And also that they're knickers. They're not long pants, they're knickers. They come down to your knee. Long feet seem to run in the family. They said my dad's feet were as big as canoes. My grandpa F.W. had some wooden shoes he wore that they said were as big as Chinese junks. And we got somebody in the crew today that's got a size 15 that he wears. And he's part of the John family also. I played football for the Green Bay team. Played for a lot of years. In the early 1900s, team in Green Bay called and wanted me to come play for them. I would have to pay my train fare back and forth, and I was working on the farm and I just couldn't do it. Later on in 1919, when that packing company started their team in Green Bay, they didn't call me because I was 38 years old by then. Dad and I spent our winters logging up in the woods. Picture of me in front of the chow hall. I had to stoop over to get through the door. I had a good reputation. They said if you want a good job done, an honest job, call Calvin John. He's got a good crew. He'll take care of you. And I cherish that reputation. The way we load our logs, we're on sleds. We had a 4-horse team, and we piled the logs on it as much as we could. The horses towed the logs on an iced road. We used to ice the road, so it was easier for to pull the sled. Horses had cleats on their shoes so they wouldn't fall and they could dig in and get some traction. We had to ice the road a couple times during the day because the cleats dug it up, chewed it up quite a bit. Here's a picture of the water tank that we used to ice the roads with. Fill that up, haul it back and forth, and put water on the road. When we loaded the sleds, we had an A-frame with a horse on one end of the cable, a log on a chain on either end of the log, and we'd haul it up an incline to see in the front of the sled. That's how we got the logs loaded up. Oconto County Reporter, September 11th, 1903. Got a story in it about the people from Gillett went to the State Fair in Milwaukee. Among the people were Agnes McDonald and Calvin John. Now we jump forward. April 27th, 1904. I married the smartest and the prettiest girl in town, Agnes McDonald. She was a local school teacher. It was kind of a mixed marriage. I was 6'6" and she was 5'2". And she was an Irish Catholic. So we got married at the rectory at Oconto Falls at St. Anthony's Church. Didn't cause any problems with our family though, because I take her to church on Sunday, go to the tavern and commune with my buddies till the service was over, pick her up and take her home again. She was a great gal. She helped with the books, worked around the farm, worked over that hot cast iron wood stove for 50-some years, never had indoor plumbing. She was a wonderful woman. We did most of our farming with horses. This is a better picture of the wagon than it is of the horses, but the horses were used for everything. They were very important. We had a big farm, and we built a big cow barn and a hay barn. We milked about 20 cows a day. Creamery came and got the milk in the morning and the evening, and they go over to the pig pen, and they take the whey that was left over from the cheese-making operation, dump in a barrel, and we feed the pigs with that. Nowadays, if you want to get whey, you go to a health food store, and it's a food supplement, and they use it as an ingredient in a lot of the foods that we buy. We had a horse barn, we had a chicken coop, we had a pig house, we had a granary, we had machinery sheds. We had a lot of buildings out there that we used to run the operation. All those buildings are gone now. All that's left is the house. The farm is on John Road, just north of town here. The picture of Ag and I when we got one of our first vehicles. Made it a lot easier. We didn't have to go out and hitch up the horse to the buggy to go into town, get anything done. So you go out and I'd use the Armstrong starter, crank that sucker, and away we go. My big problem when I bought a car for myself was getting behind the wheel. I had to buy a businessman's coupe because I was so tall. The coupe had a front seat in it and a big area in back. The dealer had moved the front seat way back so I'd get my legs underneath the steering wheel and get at the pedals. And there was a gentleman just here who said he was one of the men that helped move the seats back in Calvin's cars, and they had to weld some handles on the steering wheel so you could reach it after they got seats so far back. That was new information. My cousin Alfred is in this picture with me. 1942, the government had the old man's draft. They had all of us old-timers fill out our draft registration. They weren't going to put us in the war, but they wanted us to know what our skills were for work in the war effort. Card says I was 61, self-employed, blue eyes, gray hair, had false teeth, and I was starting to shrink. I was only 6 foot 5.5 inches tall. It's a good thing they didn't want me in the Army because I made a big target over there. And my middle name was Calvin Cubby John. Cousin Alfred that was in the other picture was my oldest sister's son, Claire. Claire is buried over behind where the blacksmith is staying. There's a headstone over there. It's got some flowers on it. That's Claire's grave. She died when Alfred was only 11 months old. His father went out to Dakota to work, and he froze to death in a blizzard in 1887, 2 years later. Alfred was left an orphan. So my mother and dad took him in. He was named after my dad. He lived with us until 1890. He was like my little brother. He was adopted by a family in 1890 in South Milwaukee named the Lorings. He was a short-tailed relation. To this day, we don't know where Jacob is buried or where he died. We can find no record of it. And we're looking for pictures and information on Clara and her husband Jacob Wilhelm. Jacob isn't buried here, but Clara is. We never had any kids. We always had nieces living with us. One of Ag's nieces, Sandra Cota, was a reporter for the Milwaukee Journal for a lot of years. This is Sandy, myself, Ag, and cousin Alfred again. The 1930 census tells us that we had nieces Harriet Cortev and Kathleen McDonald living with us. And we know that the census was right because my sister Evie lived across the road, was a town clerk. And she did the census. 1940, the census says we had a niece, Sandra McDonald John, living with us, a hired girl, Dorothy McDonald, a hired man, Larson Rowland, living with us. And in 1937, after my dad died, my mom moved in across the road with Evie and Andrew Shire and their two kids, Jane and Gail. They were all on the farm up there in John Road. Cousin Alfred had a grandson that used to spend the summers with us in the 40s. He was a city boy. He came from Milwaukee. We tried to teach him something about farming. He helped Ag in the house and a normal hired man out in the field. And one day we sent him out to the hen house to get the eggs. And he brought all the eggs back. He brought the wooden eggs back. He brought the glass eggs back. And he brought the real eggs back. The hens didn't settle down for about a week after that. We rented land to the cannery. And they probably wonder why that pea field hit the far corner didn't have many peas in it. That's because Ron and Ag picked a lot of peas out there for a supper table that summer. In 1960, that city boy that came to visit us, one year, okay, I'm ahead of myself. One year, I gave the city boy a .22 rifle to shoot the pigeons that were pooping in the hay out in the barn. In 1960, he won the state rifle championship, married a girl he met at a rifle tournament. His daughter went to college on a shooting scholarship in Kentucky, went to the 1984 Olympic trials. Their 15-year-old son won a gold medal in national competition in Ohio when he was 15 years old. And the twin daughters won and shot for the 4-H national championships for a good many years. All because of those messy pigeons and the instructions I gave them on using that rifle. Had a house moving crew. We moved houses in Gillett, Conneaut County, Shawano County. And one of the things we had to do was put somebody on top of the roof to guide the electric wires over it as we pulled it down the road. Didn't want to snag it. So one summer, Ron, the city boy, would ride the top of the roof and guide those wires over it. He told us he never told his mother and daddy he would do it back again the next summer. The crew was foreman by Gail Shire, my sister's boy. He was badly wounded fighting with George Patton in France in the Second World War. Recovered in Paris. We jacked the house up, put a couple timbers under it, some real dollies under the timbers, and we were able to move it to wherever we wanted to go and take it to. 1950, 55, Ag and I celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary. In 1953, we were a month away from our 53rd anniversary, we never made it. We hit a tree coming back from Wittenberg. I died at the scene and Ag died 2.5 hours later in the Shawano Hospital. She was a great gal, a great woman. I want to thank you for coming, and that's the long and short of my story.